I was the HR director for a department store a few years back. I received a notification one morning from my IT department that the cameras had caught motion roughly around 1 a.m. and that they were forwarding me the video because it had to do with someone from my department. Super confused, of course, I hit play and started watching. It was our store manager that entered the store, but he wasn't alone. He was with an unknown person. And then they proceeded to do the deed on every square inch of available display and shelving.
Shelving.
Oh my God.
Shelving, yeah, it sounds painful. Every employee was aware of the camera, so it really shocked me that he just seemed to forget like they turned off. It was the most awkward termination process, but it got even more awkward when he filed for unemployment.
Oh my God. Did they have a hearing?
A phone hearing, though, because they don't want to do that in person, right?
Have y'all ever done that? Your
No,
faces, you're like, what?
No, but my husband wanted to.
Do they
Oh,
do they have
damn.
any I assume there's no pictures in this Reddit, like the shelving. I'm just really caught up on that because that seems to be like that must be really good shelving.
You want the
very
store layout now?
Sturdy.
Yeah.
For sure, of course I do.
Well, and
Oh,
I think of
man.
like the ivory steel ones
too.
that's what I'm thinking. And I'm like, are you on the bottom shelf?
Right. Like tucked
Like
in.
I want to know the logistics.
Yeah. We're all
Sounds
thinking about
uncomfy.
this now, right?
But I'm also thinking like a department store probably has bedding, right? And there's
Mhm,
probably the
mhm.
fake beds.
Right. Right. Well, unless it's like Kmart with like hard lines, soft lines, where you had, the
Well,
different,
yeah.
and it's like a department store, but not like the full furniture. Like wasn't like it certainly I didn't work at like the fancy Kmart if there's fancy ones with furniture.
Well, yeah. Well, and I worked at Sears for 6 years in high school and college, and so
Did
we
they have
had
furniture there?
well, no, but we had electronics and we had fridges and ovens, and so
Mm.
yeah.
Oh my God.
Washing
Like-
machines.
Yeah, like you
Yeah.
could do it on a washing machine.
Oh, wow.
That is, I mean, I'm curious what that person is paid to be an HR at that store. And is that the time when you show up to work and you see this? And what is the moment? Like it's like the frog in water often in HR where it's like the craziest stuff and the craziest stuff happens. And it's some days you're just like unhinged. I cannot do this
Well,
anymore. But
Mhm.
is that
yeah.
day for this individual?
It's super unbelievable, right? But it's true, and that's what and I always joke like people be people, and I don't
Mhm.
think people realize sometimes why HR professionals are jaded because it's shit like this
Mhm.
we have to deal with.
Like, definitely send me that Reddit because I guarantee, and I'm going to investigate this for myself later, that there are people in those comments that are like, no way, you're lying. If you are listening to this, which obviously you are, that was the stupidest way to say it. And you're
They could
like,
be reading
"There's-
the transcript.
That's
as well.
true. There, okay.
Right.
Thank you, Ashley. See, I love that girl power.
Yep.
But if you are sitting there, you could be standing. God damn. If you were just thinking, if you were just thinking, there's no way this does not happen.
Oh,
You've got 3 people here
we're
that
just-
telling you, I promise you, this happens and more.
yes.
And part of our job as the workplace warriors, I swear, is to keep this from you. It's so that you can have a healthy, as much as possible, employee experience. It truly is, right?
Yeah.
We think about you all. We don't want this nasty shit to get out. Of course, we don't want it to hit the news, which sometimes it does, right? But really, it's more so we don't want to be shitting in the pool. We don't want to encourage this type of shit. We want to nip it in the ass, and we want to, exit, and we want to move forward, and we want to just create something that's safe for you. But yes, it does happen. So I bet there's comments. People are like, no way. Oh, way.
Yeah.
Oh wait.
Way.
Well, and this is
Stories for days, baby.
this is the type of story in HR where you got to do the next level thinking and think, right, you kind of don't want people to know about this because you're like, this person did something absolutely disgusting, and probably should have thought thought differently. But do I want to tell people this? One, because not only does it satisfy your, lady whistle down gossip, or the like, or Lord whistle down, but to give that gentle reminder to everybody of like, we have cameras in here, so don't let me get. I think
Mm-hmm.
this is where I think everybody would know about this story,
Oh
Oh
yeah.
because
yeah.
I would be
Oh
like, this
yeah.
is going to
Oh,
save me some time to not have to do investigations, because it's that reminder.
you know the IT guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's how
You
this shit
know,
leaks. It's
yeah.
usually not HR
It's not HR. It's
or
the
legal.
IT guy going to be like,
I
you
promise.
have to watch this.
I
Yeah.
promise, because
Yeah.
I've had people, get upset with me. Oh, I thought it was going to be confidential. Bitch, it was.
Yeah.
Okay. Except that your ass is on camera and that IT team's got 8 people on it. And, it
Group
is what
chat
it
gone
is. I
wild.
didn't, yes, it's true. Oh my gosh. That Jabber, whatever the hell else was hot. The Slack channel was,
The WhatsApp.
whoo, yeah, whatever ooh, that shit was on fire.
Yeah.
Oh, damn. Reddit, they're always holding it up, aren't they? They always
Yeah,
got
that's
some good
right.
shit going on.
Yeah,
Ah,
just when
well,
you think you have a bad day, go check it out.
thank you. Absolutely. Oh, gosh. They always got something cooking over there. Oh, well, on that note, let's transition to our meeting. That was some hot water cooler talk. And kudos to that boss for the staying power. Oh, not staying power in employment, but in other ways. Wow. That's all I can think
That
about
is
all
what she
night, really.
said.
Oh, damn. But anyways, this meeting's agenda, let me go ahead and walk through that so we can all be on the same page. But we are going to start with our cringe corporate speak, as always. And that is going to be brought to us today in this meeting by Ashley. She's on the docket for that. Little legal term there for you. All proud of myself, and I know what it is. I think that's a legal agenda. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it is. You're
Oh,
exactly
okay. Oh
right.
my God. I like, whoa, yay, good for me. Oh gosh, I've watched a lot of TV. And then we are going to shift into our meeting hot topic, which is all things resumes. So, kind of a little resume 101, right? None of us here are professional resume consultants, I guess. I don't know what they call themselves. But boy, do we know a fucking thing or two about resumes. We all have one, so that's a thing. Probably multiple versions. And we have probably read thousands and thousands of resumes between
Correct.
us. I know I've read thousands because I've done
Mhm.
a lot of career fairs and conferences and whatnot. And so we are going to just share some do's and don'ts, perhaps some best practices, dispel some social myths, you name it, but all things resumes. And so hopefully you find this meeting topic helpful. And then, of course, as always, we are going to transition, pivot, and move and shift all the corporate cringe terms into some questions and comments. And so, Ashley, kick us off. What do you got for us today?
Today's docket has up, Your Honor. It's
Love it.
has is right. And what I mean
Right.
by right is not right with a period at the end, but right with a question mark at the end. And if you've been in meetings, I tend to see this definitely more in corporate than like non-corporate environments, and especially in like the tech, like maybe a marketing, sales, but even sometimes even HR. But this idea of like they say a sentence and then it's right at the end of it, as if it's like asking people to agree, but it's not. It's assuming that you're going to agree. So to say like, uh, our focus is on today's agenda, like, right, but like they'll say right after many sentences. Have you all seen this and heard
Yes.
this?
I'm pretty sure
Bookless,
I do
yes.
it sometimes.
Oh, do you? Are you guilty?
Oh my God, yes.
Jamie's not going to speak the next, because she's going to get ready and she's going to be
Right?
worried she's going to add it to the end.
I even do it. No, I mean, I even do it in like emails. Like I'll be a correct question mark.
No, but that's not what
That's
I'm talking
different.
about. You're asking then if people are correct. I mean it as people are saying it, and they're literally not, they are not going to listen to anybody's opinion. They're just going to say it and move on to the next sentence. And they're
Right?
like saying this is declaratory. Like in our Instagram, on our stories, I'll find some examples, like some examples of this. Hopefully there's like a YouTube that like talks about this. And so I'm not going to be a jerk and cut people. Like I cut people doing this, but it like,
It chaps,
Yeah,
yeah.
it does. Like I remember, I can literally remember, and I won't disclose who I was working for when I heard this, but I remember hearing this in a meeting and thinking to my own personal drinking coffee game, because I heard it was a female in this instance, but she said it, and she was in IT, and she was in leadership, and I think she said it 10 sentences in a row, and I was like, is she asking for people's
Oh.
opinions? I'd never heard this before, and it was
So you
odd.
Well,
said the one with the question mark, but I've heard maybe more the one with the period for the start of shit. So they're like, right, moving
Ooh,
on. Like it's kind of like a shutdown thing in a
yes.
way. You
mhm.
know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yes.
To
Yeah.
your point. So it's either shutting down the beginning or it's shutting down at the end. Shutting down at the end to say, we're all in agreement. Y'all don't get an opinion.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
we are.
Right.
We are in agreement. We're
Yeah,
not at
yeah,
not. Are
yeah,
we in agreement? We are in agreement. We will be in agreement. You will not disagree with me.
yeah. The Brits
Well,
say that, right?
well,
Right.
I feel like the right question mark though is almost because like maybe someone lacks confidence in what
Hmm.
they're saying.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's almost like the question mark, right?
Yeah. See, I mean, I
They're
need to
kind of
find
like,
some.
agree with me. Like,
Agree.
like
Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe sometimes it is that,
I
right?
do. As you say that, I'm thinking of people that I know from other things they've said that they've like had some kind of imposter syndrome type things. And to me,
Yeah.
they don't seem as confident as I think they probably should be. But that is a good crutch. Ooh,
Well,
Jamie,
because
I'm
I
gonna
think
sit on that.
I think that's why I use it
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
because I'm pretty certain that I know the answer, but I almost want to double check myself.
Yes.
So I'm
Yeah.
like, right?
Like someone confirm.
Yeah.
Almost like,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Like, am I on the right page? You know?
We've had a
Yeah.
couple besties that wrote in about this as well because we like when people suggest it. And someone had said, "Right," I said, "Oh, good. That's on our spreadsheet."
So maybe if you say right, that's totally, you're within your right to do that.
Yes.
But you
Right?
may need to clarify, like something that I do sometimes, and it's kind of the same like what you're talking about. I will say, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And people will interpret that I think they're stupid. Sometimes I do. But but the majority of the time I'm seeking to understand like legitimately,
Same.
like I like what I just said, does that make sense? Because I'm not all together today.
Well,
So
yeah.
did I make that make sense?
Yeah.
So like I will expand like that and probably look insane, but it helps. I'm not trying to offend anybody.
Like I'm a big verbal processing and
Hmm.
so I think a lot of times I'm like we're on the same wavelength, right? So
Right.
There you go. Well, right. So
so
Right.
let's move on.
I know. So
Right.
let's move on to the hot topic of today, and that is all about resumes. God, let's just dig in. What social myths are you seeing out there, ladies? What are people thinking about resumes?
I think one thing that I've seen a huge influx of recently is just the career coaches that charge
Oh,
like $500 to redo your resume. I think that's the most frustrating
Oh.
for me because they are preying on people who clearly might be out of work, maybe due to a layoff, maybe,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and they're preying on people at their weakest moment when they're looking for a job and charging them an insane amount of money to look at their resume when there's so many things free on the Google.
Or
mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
mean, 5,800. I mean, there's ones that are like
Oh, yeah,
2,500,
I've even seen more, yeah.
3,000. But then the gap is then that one. And there's one who we've talked about previously, who's a LinkedIn lunatics frequent flyer,
Right, right.
who has a resume service that will charge like that one's around 1,000, I think, or something like
Mm,
that. But was shown to have reached out to people that actually do that resume review work and was paying them so little. Like it was like $50 a resume, 80. I mean, it was like
mm-hmm,
crazy compared to things, and so
mm-hmm.
it's super important as you're articulating what value you are, like to give a 2,000% markup on a review of someone that's likely out
Yeah.
of work, like that just does not sit right with
Yeah.
me at
No.
all.
Yeah.
Exploitative. Please don't
Totally.
use those services. I
Yeah,
mean,
don't.
that's my opinion. Look, you got a
We've
free resource right here in us just
Yes.
sharing, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And you
yeah.
listen to our content and
Yeah.
find someone credible in your
I
We ha-
personal lives or circle or whatever and
we've
get
talked
some
about
support.
Sammy Jones, who's on TikTok, win the job. We've talked about her previously. It's like win underscore the underscore job, but she does like those reviews, and I've referred people to her,
Yeah.
including from all different levels, from kind of looking to transition careers, or like literally senior level, like a CEO
Mhm.
level, and have rave reviews on Sammy. She's great, and she's super reasonable, and so that's just one example that I
Yeah,
can
Mhm.
or
attest to.
I always suggest when people ask me, is HR Molly HR.
Mm-hmm.
She actually has a free template. And so
Oh,
that's
that's
even just a good starting
yes.
point.
Yeah.
And you can Google, action verbs. You
Yep.
can Google fancy templates. You can also buy, well, Word has a bunch of free ones. But you can also buy really pretty templates off of Etsy for like $3 if you want to get fancy. I
But
mean,
don't get too pretty. Don't get too
Yeah. No pink paper.
when
let's
I
switch
can
that.
tell you, as someone who I have looked at those resumes, I could care less how pretty it is. I mean, I'll compliment, like think, oh, this is a pretty resume, but I don't give a shit what it looks like. I give a shit about what you've done, what your history is.
Mhm.
But there's so many free resources out there. You can even just Google like um, HR generalist sample resume, and you'll 500 things will pop up. And it doesn't mean that you're copying. It helps you look, like read. Oh, I've done that too, or oh, I did a part of that. And you don't need to pay a lot of money because there's so many free
Yeah.
resources out there.
And especially don't pay a lot of money to someone who has zero background in it.
Uh-huh.
Right. So for some of
Uh-huh.
these quote career coaches on LinkedIn that really prey on people, like, Jamie, you were saying, that are kind of down and out, right? They're in transition. There's a lot going on, right? Emotionally, all of this. Look at their backgrounds.
Yeah.
Did they ever
Yep.
work a day in a position where they
Mhm.
wrote or reviewed resumes?
Mhm.
Some of the best people, the highly credible people, are going to be those within HR, recruiters, talent
Yep.
acquisition professionals. I mean, people where they live and breathe this. They know the philosophy, they know the research. They
Yeah.
themselves have reviewed thousands. They know how they read a resume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On average, research says we spend 7 seconds on a resume. It's a billboard for you,
Mhm.
it's a
Yeah.
marketing sell for you to get an interview. That's it, right?
Yeah.
So it's precious real estate for
Yeah.
you to utilize. I've seen resumes out here that exploiters are trying to sell that are 10 pages long. No one's going to
Yeah.
read that shit.
Right.
They don't know what they're doing. They never went to school for this.
The only time you ever need a resume like that is if you're like a physician,
I know. Or in
like a CV.
education, all
Yeah.
rude.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Right.
Oh,
that's it.
I have some lightning round questions. I was going to ask y'all for some
Oh,
of your thoughts
awesome.
as we for some of these. Pictures on resumes.
nope.
Well, it's a big European thing. So I'm not a fan of it, but
Is it?
it's common. Yeah. Yeah, it's very common. So like sometimes you might get it because they're from somewhere in Europe. So
Mhm.
not a huge fan of it though, personally. Like I would never put my face on
Absolutely
it.
not in the US where we have
Yeah,
protected
no.
classes. The
Oh
bias is
God.
so
Yes.
extreme. We're a
Yes.
country built on hate and racism.
Yep.
Sorry. I do love America.
Go
Like, go
off, queen.
America. I know, I'm just saying,
America.
okay? We have a lot of drama with that still. We
Mm-hmm.
haven't figured
Yeah.
that out. Every place around the world has issues with things like that. But that is not societally, socially, like what we would do here. You want to lessen the bias, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As much as you can, right? So if you're like, oh, there's no way there's bias, oh, please just
Mm-hmm.
Google that and do the research. You
Oh
know what
yeah.
I
Oh,
mean? And a lot of it
Yeah.
is subconscious, but
Yeah.
a lot of it's not.
Well, yeah,
Okay,
like
so don't put
yeah.
your picture.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
People won't even hire you because they think you're ugly. I'm not even kidding. And they
right.
they want to be around someone that's pretty. It doesn't even
Yeah.
matter what color you are or what
Mm-hmm.
sex or anything. It's crazy.
But likewise, people, if you are happen to be, good looking, save that for Instagram. Don't
or TikTok.
because you can also set yourself up unintentionally for some pretty unsafe situations by putting a very attractive picture in there, and that's not you doing it. But generally, I agree. I'm not for pictures. Okay, full address on your resume.
Nope.
Like full home address.
Yeah, so I think prior to the pandemic, this was a thing, and I think it was common. I think post-pandemic, it's not, because remote work is so prevalent. So I say no. It is sometimes nice to know like a city or a state or even a state. But no, I do not need to know where you live, because it also does bias. I remember
1,000%.
years and years ago, someone's city was a good hour away, and the person didn't want to interview them. The hiring manager didn't want to interview them because, well, they're going to have to drive every day. I'm like, okay, well, they applied for the job knowing damn well where it is. Let that person make that decision.
Exactly.
We're not making that decision for the person.
Exactly.
Sure enough, we end up hiring the person.
Another great example is, and I learned this back in grad school, they didn't want to put our addresses on there. I went to Mays Business School at Texas A&M, but they didn't want us to put our addresses on there. Number one, for safety.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, because people are crazy.
Sure. Oh my God.
And
totally.
these things get sent everywhere.
Yeah.
But the second reason is because, to your point on bias, there's absolutely 1,000,000% location bias. I've had employers tell me, I see you're in Texas. Quote, Texans never leave. Now I'm back in Texas, but I traveled around a lot and have lived in a lot of different places. But that's the thing. Texans never leave. They love Texas too much. And so automatically they're like, we will not hire a Texan because they will not stay in, making it up, Massachusetts for more than a year or whatever.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They can't do winters, blah, blah, blah. They're too proud, So there's a lot of bias.
And I agree. I think I think about, for years, I put my full address on.
Oh, I know. God, me too.
What were we thinking?
When I lived, I think I lived in Australia and was applying for jobs like back in the U.S. or applied for a job back in the U.S. Put my resume together for, like, why did anyone need to know where I lived? It was so like okay, I'm glad, like, that's some of the stuff you see on social media that people talk about, and you're like, oh my God, thank you. But also, if you see a posting that says like must live in one of these states and you live in one of those states, I agree, saying like metro, Atlanta, Georgia, where I live, area, great. And so interviewers also, it's important to remember, you don't need to then ask that person like, where do you live in Atlanta? None of your business.
Yeah, don't do that.
You may be trying to make conversation, but like it can feel off-putting, and there's what good is going to come from that? Okay. Do you need to keep a resume to one page?
I don't care if it's one page. I prefer it one page, but I mean, even my own has now bled into two.
Yeah, I have 2 pages. I'd say absolutely no more than 2.
Yeah.
But what you have on there is meaningful. It needs to be meaningful.
Yes.
The shorter, the better. Because like I said, we're reading this and we're human. And you want to lead with all the good shit, like at the top. Don't give, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we're spending 7 seconds on it just to see if you're qualified to move you onto the good pile,
Yeah.
But if you've had a 20-year career like me,
same.
I mean, you may have 2 pages, right?
Now,
but make sure it's valuable.
Yeah. Have I taken off Sears?
I hope.
Yes, I have.
took off Chewy.
I should. I would put. No, I've said this recently. The best experience I had, I got I worked at McKinsey, but I think working at Subway and Kmart, I got more experience. I'm gonna put those back on my resume.
For real.
Back.
Yeah. And Sears is where I started in HR, but I removed it. So
you gotta put that back on. You gotta leave that. People like, she was in Sears HR. What have you seen at 1:30 in the morning? Hired Jamie. That's well, okay. Personal hobbies on resume.
Nope.
Oh, I hate it.
Nope.
Hard stop. I could give 2 shits what you do, Brett.
Small talk.
Yeah.
See, I like them, and I should.
Oh!
I'll be honest.
Bias.
Yeah, but but also for me in part because some of my hobbies are like golf, tennis, and so but those can also have a bias of like someone that's maybe they can play in our foursome in this tournament, like or things like that. But I've also seen ones about putting parenting in there, putting your kids. I had a conversation with a colleague about that once, and about whether you should put that you're a parent on your resume. And I had said
Oh
that.
my
I was like, I
God.
would take that off. And they were like, I want people to know that. And if they're not going to hire me because of it, want them to. And I was like, I hear you, but like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't, I again, like, just like no one needs to put, anything about your parental status, I
Yeah.
don't think.
Why this one's really tricky is because the majority of hobbies that I see are religious.
Mm.
When
Yeah.
people put that,
Yeah.
it's a lot about their religion, and I've had lots of hiring managers I've supported that have made comments, oh, they're that? No.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I won't say what the that is, but it's always been the same that. So it's like it's just another opportunity for bias. You want to, as
Yep.
clean as you can, stick to that. You are qualified for that job
Yeah.
and show it.
It's yeah, and also like me, like what hobbies am I gonna list? Like you have good hobbies, Ashley. I'm like social media, like they're gonna be like,
Memes.
oh, this bitch is gonna be on social media
Whatever.
all damn day.
I mean, if you're not in HR, but if you're going to do social media, I worked in HR at Sears, and I have like 2+ million followers on Instagram. Hired, my friend. You are sold. Next, when can you start? Okay,
Right.
here's the one. Taking Jamie, I know you've heard of this. Leigh, have you? Where there are videos that if you take the text of the job description, and this is for like AT to get you through the ATS, which are these applicant tracking systems that are, for these screeners.
Boolean keyword searches.
So if you copy and paste that and put that in like 1-point font in, white, whatever the
White,
background, so that's invisible, do that in the ETS. Does that help you to get through, or have other keywords in like a hidden font on the page? Thoughts?
I have never customized my resume for a position.
You've had some big jobs.
Lots of big jobs. They've all been big jobs, I like brush my shoulder.
Jamie and I are like, I consider those very big jobs, and my sandwich artist job at Subway was a very big job.
Would you be giving me extra mayo or no? I mean, I want a shit ton of mayo.
No, well, I would have charged you the appropriate price for it.
Oh,
that's extra.
I mean, it depends.
God, you're one of those.
You're like, how much mayo are you talking about?
No, I would drink unlimited Mountain Dews. We could have unlimited Mountain Dews. My body will never be the same from that.
Oh man.
But this like the custom, and so this is also customizing by job, but also then including that language. So.
Yeah. So here's what I can tell you in my experience. Any ATS system, they're not picking up keywords. That's not how they work. Now, granted, I'm sure
searching for them. Just
FYI. Like
you have to put that in.
Yeah, like granted, could there be one? Absolutely, that I don't know about. But in my 21 years, I've never had an applicant tracking system that picks up keywords and then, they all fucking suck. But truly, typically what happens is there is, let's say you post a job for 48 hours, 200 applicants could apply for said job. And I'm going through all 200 of those fucking resumes. And I've been recruiting before. So this is a thing. And there's no keywords. There's no way that it, red, green, yellows people. I have seen systems that red, green, yellow people, but it's all been based on an assessment that they were taken, not on their resume itself. So that's a huge myth. I believe.
The juice ain't worth the squeeze.
No,
all that effort in your time, you could have applied to 50 more jobs.
Exactly.
Well, and I think now there's likely, if either there's already or going to be systems that flag you doing that, and can and also people can then highlight it and see it. And there are now absolutely recruiters that will do that and will ding you because of that. I mean, the thing I think to think of is if there's when there's roles you're interested in, looking through those and seeing what do those roles speak to, and does my resume speak to those as well, and is this a job that I'd want? I think thinking, because it's also interviewing is, although it feels like a reality show, the prize isn't just plain old check. It's working for that money, and so you want to make sure it's something that you like. And so thinking about, okay, and I tell people all the time, like, I don't please, like, I really, I do not review resumes for money. I do not review resumes for free. I'm not your go-to person on that. But when I have in the past, I've looked at them point blank and I'll say, okay, well, if you want to be a manager, for example, talk about the things that are like leadership. And if you haven't been a manager for long, that's fine. But then highlight those things. So just, I think taking some time, and as you put your general resume together and thinking about that role that you want, think about objectively, like, what do I want this to say, and how would this read to the human that is going to be looking at this,
Mm-hmm.
and the hiring managers that are going to be looking at this. Does this speak to someone they'd want to have on their team?
Ooh, I love all
Okay.
those questions, Ashley. So kind of
I know
on
that was
that,
fun.
we're still on meeting hot topic, but I'm just curious from each of you, like quickly, right? Because we have to shift into questions and comments. But top best practice, right? Like, what's the number one thing you share with somebody who comes to you and is like, "Hey, what's your top advice for resumes?"
You don't need to put your GPA.
Oh God.
But I
SAT
did really
score.
good in grad school.
SAT score. I've seen. I hate though. I've literally like applied for jobs that are like filled. Get to the application and people have asked for like my SAT score,
Yeah,
GPA,
yeah.
things like that, and I've been like, what?
Oh
I
my
Of course.
still see it sometimes.
Oh my
no
God.
way.
Yeah, I
Oh.
mean, people will send me the red flag job postings, and I will still say SAT and ACT scores, and I'm like, I don't remember mine, to be completely honest. I really don't. I probably should. I have them somewhere, but like, yeah,
Oh
we
damn.
don't need to know that.
The only people remember their scores are people that got that perfect score or whatever. Yeah, the top
I
10%.
couldn't tell you what SATs was.
1,600.
Ashley got it. That's why she
Of
knows.
course, of course. Oh my gosh. Ashley, what about you?
I mean, I think it is to look at your resume and look at a fresh look and think, would I want to work with this person, and how would this person make my life easier? Because the people that you're going to interview with, one is HR. So like thinking through, but then once you get past that screening, a lot of people are going to be either your boss, your colleagues, and those that you're going to be working closely with cross-functionally. And so does your resume speak to them of like things I'm going to do to make your life easier? And what can you put in there that speaks to that? And again, they should likely be doing the same thing to you. They probably won't. But your language will encourage them to do likewise. But when you can do that, if you're reading through 200 resumes, you're going to want someone that stands out, that's going to come in, be able to do things, and again, seems like they'll be able to like learn, be self-sufficient. And so just reading it from that lens. Leigh, how about you?
So what Jamie was saying, she's had, a few hundred people on Rex. I'm sure we've all had jobs where we've had thousands. I've had
yeah, I have
6,000 people applying. So to that point, just remember that as a job applicant, 7 seconds. I'm going to sound like a broken record. That's all we're going to spend on that resume, because there's so many things to review. So remember that the resume, like I said, is a billboard. It's a marketing ploy to get you the interview, to get you a call. It is not designed to get you the job. That's where people fuck up. So what they do is they get so exhaustive in the resume. For each job, give me 3 action things that you've actually done with some, quantifiable stats in there, right? And that's it. Tease me. Get me to where I want to know more about you. And I have to call your ass to learn how the hell did you do this?
Tease
right?
me.
Do not tell me everything. That is a huge mistake, because then you're just showing that's all you can do.
Yeah.
That's it. You know what I mean? So again, precious real estate, 7 seconds, make it easy to read, and, get through it.
And one thing I think, just the last I'll add, is there's a difference between like a career coach and a recruiter. And I mean, from a recruiter, especially third-party recruiters. So some companies will have internal recruiters. So that's someone that isn't a fellow employee of that company. That person probably obviously, works in the company and likely has a better insight into what the company's really like. And so when it comes to the time in the interview, not the first thing you want to say out the gate to start the interview, but when you can, ask them what things are really like, they're going to have better insight. A third-party recruiter that's hired, that is a very transactional person that they are also trying to get you the most money they can.
Yep.
They're going to want you to stay for at least 60 to 90 days, however long their period is. But
Yes.
that's because after that they have to find a replacement, but it's a pretty quick period. So they're candidly not often going to be as invested in your long-term success. It is more transactional. That's where you have to do more due diligence with the people you can talk to at the organization. But those people, those third-party recruiters, they're not going to be looking out for you and giving you advice on your resume and things like that often. Like, they don't have time for that. They're going to have to find people that fit that profile already. And so if you really are looking for like practical tips on your resume, finding someone, again, that career coach that's had that experience and can give you some of those tips that way. Just don't try to rely on those like third-party recruiters of like, can you find me a job? They're not going to often going to be marketing you out there. They're going to slot you in spots. They have openings. And so just to be really mindful of what those different roles are.
Yeah. What I've always shared with people is we, the company, the recruiter, whatever, find people for jobs, not jobs for people.
Yep.
You know,
Mind blowing, isn't it?
Oh, mind blowing. You know, but once you have that perspective and understand, right,
Yeah.
then you're more informed. And
and if it doesn't, and if they don't think it's going to work out, like not trying to prove yourself for this job. Again, sometimes you're going to do that, but knowing that's why if you're applying to something and your resume is not exactly spot on, and that's an internal recruiter that's looking at it can be hard to get through, and that's where you may have to really show of like the experience that you have to get into that.
Well, shifting into some questions and comments to end this meeting. Ladies, any questions or comments?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to get y'all's thoughts on cover letters, because I know for me, I'd rather eat an entire bus tire than have to write a cover letter. So what are your thoughts on them? Do you read them? Do you do them?
Well, I've had several videos on cover letters. My position is fuck cover letters.
Yep.
I don't write them personally. I don't want to work in an organization that would require a cover letter and all this extra unpaid work for an applicant. So that's just, again, my position, but that's my field too, in the industries I've worked in. So I never felt that was appropriate, meaning, hey, I've never won one of my jobs with a cover letter. I've never had a cover letter, and I do not read them. I've not requested one ever from an applicant. And I don't think I've worked anywhere that required a cover letter either. So I don't like that extra hurdle or step. Now, if you are a copywriter or something and they need a work stamp, that's different.
Yeah,
okay. That's different, but nope. I'm not a fan.
I'm not a fan generally of like the extra steps, but I do think there's times when they can be helpful. And those are when you're trying to explain something that's not evident from the face of your resume. And that's a lot of times you'll hear from people that are trying to transition industries. So you may be in, food service, retail, trying to get into a corporate environment, which God love you, run. Or teach like people, if you have a role. And so a couple of things. One is, if you're trying to do that transition, going to somewhere like a ChatGPT of how can I say on my resume, what are skills I can highlight and put those into terms. And so, because you don't want to lie about what your experience is, but that's where I think a cover letter, it doesn't always have to be so formal, but that's where I do think you can stand out to give that explanation. Or and I know this is controversial, is finding that hiring manager and sending them like a LinkedIn note. And I say hiring manager, not recruiter, because if that's the person that's going to make a decision, standing out and saying, I know you have a slew of applicants. This has been very short. This has been my experience. I'm transitioning. Here are the skills I've developed that'll absolutely translate to success in yours. I just love to be included in those initial round of interviews. There are people that will hate that and will ignore that. Okay, fair enough.
You don't want to work for them anyway.
And not honestly, not that many people do this. And so, yes, if I'm hiring for a role, I'd probably be bugged if I got 1 million LinkedIn messages, but you may get like 2 or 3. Like rarely do people actually take this step. And so if it is something you really want, because what that can be easier as well is that hiring manager can say to the recruiter, hey, include this person in that initial stack. And I've seen situations where people got an auto decline when they submitted their resume, that like they didn't get through the recruiter because they're like their resume didn't read it, but then the hiring manager said include them. So they're like, hey, we'd love to include you, and people that have gotten those roles. And so that's where, again, everybody's got to make your decision, and it's not always going to work, but that can be one. So I think a cover letter, if you ever, or like I've had them like seen them if someone's like moving geographically or there's something that you're trying to explain. Again, it doesn't have to be long, but that's where I think they can be helpful. I do not like job postings that require them as a matter of course. No.
Yeah, or like I've seen them used before, for instance, like a stay-at-home mother for, the first 5 years of the child's life, and she wants to explain. I'm also okay with having a little blip about that on their resume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
It's like a professional summary at the top. It's 2 sentences,
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And
Yeah.
again, there's and
I
you
prefer
like
that.
there are no potions. There's nothing anybody can ever tell you that will get you through to every job. But it's about
exactly.
finding what's authentic to you and that you want to get out there, and things that can increase the chances of you
Mhm.
finding a job that's really right for you. And that may mean you get some more no's along the way at times, but I'm all about candor and honesty in that process.
Right?
Love it.
Jay,
Right?
you're the best. You are the best. This is why you can never leave corporate, because you're that person to be in every meeting to keep people
I
on
do.
track.
I do.
And
Any other questions or comments?
I I have a comment that's completely unrelated. So I'm the person that you don't want in a meeting because you're trying to get the F out of there.
It's like,
Exactly.
shh.
But
You're
so
between us and lunch.
it reminded me of this, of like when I said that I'm sure some applicant tracking systems now are taking, like figuring out when people, try to hide and put the job posting in there and flagging that. But did you know, in the legal world, you don't want to just post someone's take someone's pictures off the internet and and post them. Like a lot of times, like media companies will like an intern will like post a picture in a news article, and then they get sued for that, or like a picture of a restaurant and include that without getting credit from the photographer. But one of the reasons why you see people is because you can get a lot of photographers can get a lot of money by doing that.
Mhm.
But there's a service, there's services owned by big photography companies that literally photographers can go and upload like their pictures. They like upload all their pictures, and those services crawl the web continuously and alert them when another site is using their picture.
Wow.
And then also those services, now they're now dodos, they can then send out automated demand letters to companies and are like, pay us thousands of dollars or else we'll sue you for even more thousands of dollars, and for photographers. And so one of the big rules you would see, like, and I often did this, is like in my lawyer life, is like, don't publish people's pictures without rights, especially on media things. But anyway, those kind of services like that can tell if people have posted your pictures on the internet.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
fun fact.
Oh, well, not a comment from me, but a quick question. What is the craziest thing that you've seen on a resume? And I may have asked something similar like this before, but it definitely works here for this meeting topic.
I saw a resume that had a label maker thing added to it that said, my poor mother had been deceased and would have loved, like, I can't think of the exact language, but like, would have loved to have seen me working here. And this was added in a label maker at the bottom, at the bottom of the resume.
Under hobbies and interests.
Yeah, but like it's like a resume and this on top. And so again, I have questions of like, why didn't you just edit the resume and put that on? It stood out.
For me, one
Yeah.
time, I had someone deliver little buntinis with their resume
Love
inside.
it.
And I unfortunately was in a meeting, and it was like a long meeting, and so I didn't get to meet her. But she apparently waited for like a good 30 minutes,
Oh,
which I feel
bless.
very bad. They told her I was in a meeting, but I didn't end up hiring her, but I did enjoy the buntinis. But I just thought that was very neat, like kind of going the extra mile, showing
Mhm.
up and whatnot. But
Well, that one person was on LinkedIn Lunatics for doing that, I think, with her, for a cake to Nike and send them a cake with her resume on it. And I
Yeah.
think that's maybe one of the top viewed posts on LinkedIn Lunatics.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
people were
wow.
very split about the creativity and not. So I don't think she ended up getting the job at Nike. But
If
anyway.
it's your dream job, go for it.
Yeah, fuck it.
Like, get seen, because it really is about who you know, right? Like
Yeah.
networking and all of that, and making an impression, blah, blah, blah. Well, but I wouldn't spend that amount of money for every job,
Yeah, and I was also thinking, like, how many other companies did she deliver buntinis to? Like, that's what I was thinking in my head. I did end up calling her for a phone screen, but it was
Oh,
very
good.
a painful phone screen.
Oh, bless. That's why
Yeah.
she's trying to
Yep.
buy people off with food,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, I think, one of the craziest things I've seen, it's really just a favorite story of mine, because HR confession, I actually had the resume like on my fridge for a while, because it was just so interesting. I was at a career fair in California, and it was like a quick, like you're almost doing just screens, like lines.
Right.
I mean, you were just hiring hundreds of people, and offers on the spot sort of thing. But this one guy had that email. hates to work 6969 at hotmail.com. And I mean, and I just shared, gosh, buddy, it's going to be hard for you.
Not a good look, babe.
Did you give him that feedback?
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
on you.
I
Good
had
on you.
something almost similar happen. I had called someone for a phone screen and their ringback tone was take this job and shove it.
Oh my
I'm-
gosh, that's
it was-
so funny.
Oh my
It
God,
made
remember
me
this?
laugh so hard. I also one time was at a career fair at a Goodwill and there were several people and not just women that I had to like pull to the side and be like, "Hey, you should approach these career fairs like you are interviewing
Yeah.
because your titties are out or I can see your
You're in pajamas. I've
yeah,
heard that.
I can
Yeah.
see your pajamas like or I can see your underwear."
Your thongs.
And that was
popping.
not a girl. That was a boy. And granted, it was at a Goodwill. I mean, I get it. But like, I hate the saying, "Dress for the job you want, not the job you have." But it's true. Like, there is some level that you have to come prepared for, like career fairs, in what you're able to put together. Yeah.
Well, and that's where I think one organization, I'm sure there's others, we'll get some and we'll share them, but one I know is like Dress for Success, which is one.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
for two ones, one
Love
is if
them.
you're in a position and you're needing some attire and things like that,
Mhm.
especially like, I mean, God, I remember like, even like I think like going back to work after maternity leave and being like, I'm like need to triple like I couldn't fit into anything or like
Mhm.
interviewing things like that. People, whether you're in different seasons of life and you're like need something
Mhm.
quickly or financially, like I just can't right now. And so Dress for Success is an organization you can often get really business attire, but also as an employer doing that internally and having the Dress for Success drive and gathering those clothes and having that can be really helpful and something that you can do to help things that people otherwise made one off, just donate somewhere. And they tend to have chapters kind of all over. So that's it. I know that's an organization that I've worked with personally.
Mhm. I've donated. So
Yeah,
that is,
me too.
yeah, yeah. I love that. But resumes. Gosh, a necessary evil, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, I certainly appreciate you all. I know we have a hard stop, but I thought tons of awesome advice. I know I learned something. Did y'all learn something?
No.
No, I still think, and sometimes in the middle of the night, I think about how I used to put my full address on.
It's
that
like
was-
cringe.
No,
when
it's
you
so
think about it.
cringe, and
now.
also like just put myself out there, and
Yeah.
just not necessary. But that's okay. You don't know until you know.
Did you do the pink paper though and spray the perfume
Oh
on
my
it?
God. I have had that
Me
too
too.
before.
No,
See,
no.
it wasn't all bad, Ashley.
Yeah, shocking.
It was the
Actually,
worst smelling. Like I was like, oh my God, get this out of here.
yeah, no, don't do
Oh,
that. People have
gosh.
sensitivities. So just
Exactly.
plain paper,
It
black
does
and
not
white,
have
black and white ink.
But hold on, I'm gonna really date us really now because we're elder millennials. But do you remember when we had to have resume paper?
Yes, of course, for sure.
Oh, I never
my
had resume paper.
Yeah, I did.
Oh
I
my
did.
God, yeah, you
Especially
had to buy special paper to print your
Oh,
resume
well,
on.
y'all are older than me.
I am older than you by 10 days, I think.
I, as the eldest of the millennials in this, I will pipe down, people. Pipe down. It's time to be quiet and end this meeting. Everyone
Yes.
listening wants to go to
Oh,
work,
gosh. Oh, I know.
Hard
They're
stop.
itching.
begrudgingly. So
They're ready to spruce up their resumes.
Exactly.
They got to hurry up and go do that.
yeah, they've gotten all of our tips.
Oh, well, we appreciate you, besties. Like, follow, and share. Thank you so much for listening.